Dr. Marc Woodson sits down with us today to discuss where we as a Northern California Conference have been in 2021 and where we are headed in 2022. He shares how the Holy Spirit has moved through our conference in amazing ways. We have faced a pandemic, political unrest, natural disasters, and yet, through it all, we, the conference, the network of churches, schools, and other ministries, and members, you, have risen above it all and have been able to connect people to an abundant life with Jesus Christ and prepare them for His soon return. 2021 has been a very fundamental year for us as a conference.
Well, first of all, thank you for this. As I always say, I feel very blessed to be a part of the Northern California Conference, with all of our 164 churches, our 35 schools, over 40,000 members, pastors, teachers, principals. That's who we are. That makes up the Northern California Conference. And never a day goes by where, first of all, it's a privilege to be able to serve as president of this conference. This conference has been blessed in so many different ways. How do you do ministry during a pandemic? And I've just been amazed, I stand amazed really, at how our churches, how our schools have just made those adjustments and still for ministry to go forward. I probably say this all the time, but this pandemic didn't close our churches, it didn't close our schools. Maybe our buildings were, but the ministry still went forward. Ministry is still going forward. And our main purpose is to connect people to an abundant life in Jesus Christ. And that happened. That happened in our schools. That happened in our churches. Baptisms showed that, right? People are still being baptized. People are still growing in Christ. Evangelistic meetings happened. Education was still going forward. Kids are being taught. That's amazing. And we have great people who are doing that. So many blessings along the way.
I understand that back in 2018, this conference started 3 initiatives. And these 3 initiatives have been really driving forward the activities that we've done as a conference. One of those initiatives is engaging your community with compassion. And you just mentioned that a lot of ministry has still happened even during the pandemic. So in 2021, how did you see churches or schools or people really engaging their community with compassion?
Our churches and our schools have just done some amazing things. One of the questions I've asked recently is just like, for all of our churches, as many of our churches, what have you done for the community this last year? And just to kind of get a sense of how many of our churches are actually involved in our community, I was actually surprised the level or the number of churches that are actually have ongoing community projects or some special community projects. But I think of just down the way from us, the Carmichael Church, the Orangevale Church. So many of our churches are doing this. Lincoln Amazing Grace, which is a small church, doing these kinds of projects. It's been amazing. Another amazing church that has been recognized by the city is the Sacramento Capital City Church. They were a warming center in the winter, and they've been a cooling center in the summer, and that is meaning they've opened up their church doors for anyone who was basically unsheltered, and that's really being relevant to our community, and just finding ways to be compassionate. There's so many things that churches are doing, that schools are doing, projects that they have to just try to make an impact in their community. I could think of Pathfinder clubs and what they've done in certain cleanups, and it's just been amazing. It's been amazing to watch. So that's what it means to engage your community with compassion.
So another initiative is engage your calling to ministry. And when you say engage your calling to ministry, In 2021, what did that look like?
Yeah. So engage your calling to ministry is, first of all, based upon the premise that God has given each of us gifts. He's designed each of us with unique talents and skills, and even desires on our heart. So what we call passion, right? There's something that God has laid on your heart as a believer, as a follower of Jesus Christ. So one of the things that I think has shown up this year is we've had to, with churches that were were streaming their worship services, or they may have had a hybrid service where they stream, but they had some people in attendance. A new skill that's really had to been developed is how do you do media things, video? How do you do streaming? It has opened up the door to a number of people, not many young people who are technologically savvy. I'm not one of them. Who are technologically savvy, who are now helping our churches do something that many of them have not done before. And we're utilizing the gifts and talents, and it's important. I know as a pastor, my background is certainly as a pastor. I've pastored a number of churches. It was always important to me that I saw it as my job to see that every member of that church had something that they were doing that God had placed on their heart. They were to serve somewhere. In fact, in one of my churches, we used to have a statement that said, "Not serving is not an option."
How does that tie into church planting and growth? Because we're talking about the state of the conference.
Yeah.
So we need to talk about, have we seen growth?
When we first came up with these three initiatives, we said these three initiatives all complement each other, right? So if you're talking about engaging your calling to ministry, part of the way you engage your calling to ministry is doing things that are community relevant. You can use your ministry for community things. And then if you're looking at church growth and planting, we've been on a church planting initiative as well. You are using, people have to use their gifts to do church planting. They have to be involved in ministry. It's not going to be one person who's going to plant a church. You have to have a group of people to be able to do that. And then planting a church that is also relevant to its community. So you can see those three working together. We have had at least 2 new church plants that are, absolutely new. We've had churches that have been organized as churches. We can talk about those. But we have had 2 new church plants. One in the Marin area, where we don't really have a presence in Marin County. It's a new group there, and it is being sponsored by the Novato Church. And they're doing some amazing things. Interestingly enough, as they planted, this is a good example of it, as they planted their church, as they're planting their church, their mission, their ministry, what they've spent time doing is community relevant kinds of meeting those needs, figure out that community. And that's all they've been doing for the last almost a year, started in 2021. And then the people that have been involved are a smaller group of people. Many of them have come out of the Novato Church. Others have come from other churches. But what are they doing? They're utilizing their gifts.
Right.
They're working hard to utilize their gifts. There are 2 that really come to mind for me that I want to point out. One is our Sacramento Fijian congregation. It is the first Fijian Seventh-day Adventist church in the North American division. So that's an amazing thing. They've been around as a church company, but we organized them this year. The other one is the Ukrainian Seventh-day Adventist church that's here in Sacramento. Both of those churches in Sacramento. And that Ukrainian church is reaching a population that Ukrainian population that is very large here in Sacramento. So you can see that the mission, when you plant churches and when you organize churches officially, you are really speaking to the mission of the conference, and you're connecting more and more people to an abundant life.
And an important aspect for 2021 is really to talk about the financial side of the conference. How is it doing financially?
Our people are very faithful in their giving. God has blessed us. Usually when I go to a church and I'm going there to speak, or if there's a program going, one of the first things I like to do is to thank that church for its contribution in terms of its tithe, in terms of its offering. As a conference, as an organization, I like to remind us, we're not a for-profit. We're not out selling veggie burgers and that's how we make our money. We're not selling a product in order to finance what we do. It is simply by the faithfulness and the giving of our people. And our people have been faithfully doing that. And this year, we set a tithe budget based on $42 million for 2021, $42 million, and we surpassed that. Not by 1 million, not by 2 million, not by 3 million,
wow,
but by $4 million. And so we brought in $46 million of tithe. These are people giving, making a commitment, in some ways a sacrifice, for the cause of God. I just am blown away by that. To God be the glory. Great things He has done, and I'm so grateful for our people who are so generous in their giving. And that's on top of what they do, what churches do and members do in their local church and in their giving, meeting the needs in that local community, which we don't keep track of at the office per se, but our churches are keeping track of that, and so they're giving on top of that. Not to also mention the other giving as it relates to when we have special projects. We've had raised money for different disaster relief and disaster response projects.
Kindergarten fund.
The kindergarten fund, yeah, that was to help our kindergartners. But we paid for their first month's tuition for all kindergartners to keep them in our system.
And there was some growth, I understand.
And there was some growth by 20%. Our kindergarten program grew by 20% over the year before. So it's the generosity. I think that's a hallmark of the Northern California Conference is generosity, and we have been blessed as far as that is concerned. And what does that mean? What does it mean when we have those extra funds? It means that we can do more in reaching out. We can do more in ministry. It takes care of our workers, which is a great resource, right? Our pastors, our teachers, our workers. It helps to pay for them to do the work that they do, do the work that I do, do the work that you do. It helps do that. And we can add more to that to expand the ministry. And so that's exciting.
And even in light of some major devastating impacts because of the California fires that we've had. We've had some huge fires that happened in 2021, natural disasters, and not only fire, we've experienced drought. We've actually experienced recently snow. So we're getting hit from all of the various
rain,
levels.
Snow, sleet, hail, fire.
Exactly, and we've had some devastating impacts as of the fire. I can think of Leone and Foothills. Talk a little bit about, not so much, I think we've heard about what has happened to them. Let's talk about the recovery in 2021.
We have had since 2017, we have we've had at least one fire or another that has destroyed one of our buildings or facilities or properties since 2017. This last year, of course, Foothills Elementary School, and then, of course, in August, Leone Meadows. And it's just devastating. It's devastating to a community when that happens. But thanks to the resilience of our people, and you know, what I'm also grateful in any of those situations, none of our people have lost their lives as a result. You know, so I'm always grateful for that. Buildings can be replaced, things can be replaced, houses can be replaced, but you can't replace a life. And I thank God, first of all, for no lives being lost. We've lost buildings, but no lives being lost. Recovery efforts are going forward. You know, this probably sounds mundane, but thank God for good insurance. For good insurance, because our insurance has been working overtime in our territory. But both Foothills Elementary and the Leone Meadows are on their way to recovery. And I've been saying I've stolen the term, and it's kind of a joke. I said, let's build it back better. So and that's what's happening. I'm excited about what we're doing for Leone Meadows, in that when you have something like this, it gives you an opportunity to relook at your footprint, your plans, and say, what can we do differently now that we've lost some of the structures there? What are some of the things that we can do differently? So I'm excited about the direction that's going. And again, in two situations, just an example of this, of people who, again, are being generous with their giving. So outside of just the insurance, people are giving to restore those institutions. And so we're going to be okay.
Based on the results that we have and the growth that we experienced, what's kind of our new focus as a conference? Where are we trying to go now? And you know, how do you see that playing out?
One of the things that we have been reflecting on lately, and really wanting to put our focus there, has to do with being the best organization that we can be. You know, we are a church. We are a church entity. Whether you call us a nonprofit or ministry, we're a church entity. But as a church entity, as a conference, we are also an organization. We believe that as a healthy organization, it helps us to really carry out our mission in impactful ways. It extends our mission. It makes us more effective in carrying out our mission. And so that, you know, we have the organization as the conference, but our conference is made up of a number of organizational entities. Right. The church, the local school, our ministries like Leone Meadows, like Navarre. Those are ministry entities that are not a church, but those are all organizations. And we're saying not only as a conference as a whole should we be healthy, but healthy churches as organizations, right? Healthy schools as an organization, and our own leadership of those things being healthy from an organizational standpoint. All of that is for the sense of mission and to carry out our mission. So I'm excited about that. We're coming up, of course, this year to a constituency session, which will mark the 4 years that I've been able to serve as conference president. And I'm looking forward to being able to share, you know, where we've been, how we've come through, but looking into the future, looking further, and how we can expand that ministry and the mission. So I'm really excited about that. But that's where we're headed.
And in 2021, I understand you did take some steps to prepare us for what this future would look like. You even kind of changed some of your leadership.
Yeah, we did.
What did that look like, and why did you do that?
The first discipline is building a cohesive leadership team. So leadership, I'm one of those that people know that I believe leadership is everything, right? I mean, when God ever wanted to do anything, he always rose up a leader to do it, whether it was from Adam and Eve from the beginning and Abraham and Moses. Those were leaders. David, you go on and on. Jesus himself, right? Leaders. And so leadership to me is important. And so we have bought into this sense that, building that leadership team, leadership shouldn't be done by itself. It is a team thing, is important. And so with that, we thought, well, if that's the case, let's expand our leadership team a bit. For a long time, we've had our administrative council, which has really been our three executive officers, president, executive secretary, and treasurer, and then our assistant to the president has been a part of that. So it's been four men, four men. And we said, if we're really going to have a team that's going to give us perspective and help us to look at 165 churches, we just added one, and 35 schools, 40,000 members, we might need a little wider lens than four men.
Absolutely.
And so we actually doubled our leadership team, moved away from the concept of administrative council and had a leadership team, and now we have 8 on that leadership team. You're one of those 8 that are on that leadership team. So now there are 8 of us. And I must say, I'm glad, Lori, I'm glad you're part of that, because we actually have 2 women now who are part of that 8. And we need that. We really need that perspective. We need that perspective. We need the diversity, and we need the extra eyes. Now, the second discipline of that is to create clarity. And we spent all of last year in that leadership team trying to crystallize that clarity. What does it mean for us? Why do we exist as a conference? What is most important for us? What are our values? Strategically, what are the things that we feel like if we do these things, if we make decisions this way, it helps us? And what's the most important things that we need to try to do right now?
What do we think is going to make our conference, and actually has made our conference, successful? What are those 4 factors that are going to help us do that?
There are 4 that we think makes a difference for us. It also helps us when we're making big decisions to use them kind of as a screen by which we make some huge decisions. One is we believe in if we have engaged and enthusiastic, not only employees, everyone who works actually for the organization, gets paid by it professionally, but also for our members, all of our members. So engaged and enthusiastic employees and our members. Imagine that. I just believe that if people are passionate and they're engaged, in fact, there's stats that prove this. There's all kinds of studies that have proved this, that engaged employees help any organization become successful in carrying out their mission. So imagine 40,000+ people engaged and enthusiastic. Think that might make a difference?
Absolutely.
I think so too.
And as you mentioned earlier, with Engage, you're calling to ministry.
Exactly.
You were tapping into that.
Exactly, tapping into that same thing. We're seeing how that makes a difference when you've got engaged folks, forward-leaning, excited about what they're doing, excited about this great mission that we're part of. I mean, to me, we've got the most exciting enterprise on the face of the earth, right? It has eternal consequences, right? It has eternal consequences in terms of people's lives, being there for expanding God's kingdom with people. It's about people, right? And we get to be a part of that. So that's one of them. The other 3, really quickly, again, community relevance.
We talked
about that. One of our initiatives. We say, if you are going to be, if we're relevant to our community, that is what helps to make an impact. We're about people, and community is about people. So when you are helping to meet whatever those needs are, whether they're basic needs, maybe not so basic needs of human beings, you are finding ways to make connections with people to ultimately connect them to the life giver himself, Jesus Christ.
Right.
That's important. The third one is for us to be mission driven. That, we live in a world now that you can get so distracted by so many things, whether they're political divisiveness or arguments, even arguments we have in church sometimes, right? And many times when I look at those arguments or disagreements, differences of opinions that we have, when you look at the bigger scope of things, oftentimes they're really peripheral to the main focus that we need to have. So to be mission driven says how, a decision that we make or the discussion that we're going to have or time that we're going to put into that, does it help us with our mission? Do I want to really have that argument? Does it really help my mission? Does it help our mission? Even though it may be fun to argue about certain things or have a different opinion, but is it worth it? Is it where I need to spend my time and my energy? And so we've got to stay focused. Now, some things people say, well, that's peripheral. It's not really peripheral, but we can always argue that. But how does it affect our mission? That's what's most very, very important. And then the fourth one is kind of this all thing together, this thing all put together, and that is we believe that organizational health will make the difference in all of our entities, as we've talked about. So those are kind of what we see as our strategic anchors. We see them as strategic anchors for us, and we believe that's going to help us overall with making that connect, helping people to connect to Jesus Christ, and preparing them for the second coming.
And is there anything else that really kind of comes to mind about 2021 that you feel needs to be communicated as we, as a conference, as a state of the conference? Is there anything else that 2021 brought or changed or did that needs to be highlighted?
There's a song, it's a gospel song, which I love gospel music. It's a gospel song an old gospel song, we've come this far by faith. We've come this far by faith, leaning on the Lord, trusting in his holy word. He's never failed us yet. And I look back on 2021 and I know it's because of leaning on God and watching him just walk us through this storm, if you want to say, right? 100 once every 100-year pandemic, civil unrest that we've had, political division, divisiveness everywhere we have gone. It's violence, and yet we've come through that, and we're still here. We're standing, and I know it's only been because of God's grace. And so looking back and just saying, man, we've come through it, and it's been a blessing to watch God just in his faithfulness. His faithfulness. I'm not always faithful, but he is always faithful, and he is faithful to his people. He has blessed this conference, and that's how I look back at it. And it makes me, looking back at 2021, it makes me excited about what we'll experience in 2022.